A guten Erev Shabbos, everyone. Welcome to our first Kehilat Sharei Torah virtual Shabbos Drasha. The idea here is that you'll be able to have a chance to see this video, if you like, before Shabbos, and then you can think about these ideas or discuss them with your family over the course of Shabbos itself, as you like. At least one person already told me he's very much looking forward to having these talks available on the internet because sometimes he has trouble falling asleep and he figured this might help out. Well, whatever gets you through, we are here to help. This is a very special Shabbos coming up and we're living it in very challenging circumstances, in very challenging times. So first, let's talk about what's special and noteworthy and uplifting on this Shabbat, and then we'll get into what's weird, in addition to the fact that we're not all getting together tomorrow for davening and for Torah reading and for a l'chaim at the Kiddush. It's a double parsha this week, Vayakhel and Pekudei, so there's a double dose of Torah teaching for our lives. If you look closely at Vayakhel and Pekudei, they by and large mirror what we heard only a few weeks ago in the parshas of Teruma and Tetzaveh. Truma told us how to build a portable sanctuary, a portable shul that we took with us as we traveled through the desert for 40 years, how to construct the walls, the coverings, the implements, all the tools that the Kohanim, the priests, would use to do the service. What we discussed that week was how much Torah encourages us, challenges us to use the world around us and change it into something holy wherever we are, even if it's in the desert. This week's Sedra, Vayakhel, goes through each of these details and just changes the verb tense a little bit. Instead of you should do or they shall tell the Jewish people they should do such and such, it says, and they did such and such. Interesting. Could have said that whole thing with one simple verse. Everything it says here, they did. That would have been the whole parsha. Instead, it goes through each and every instruction and it says, and they did this, and they did that, and they did this, they did that. Same thing with the second of the two parshas this week, Pekudei. You should make the clothing for the Kohen like this. It said in Tetzaveh a couple of weeks ago, and this week in Pekudei, they did it like that. In a sense, it's sort of in praise of following directions. You know, oftentimes you give someone directions of what you would like to be done, and they occasionally or often find a better way to do it. At least it seems better that way. More often, what they think is a better way of doing it, actually the way you would have asked it, the way you asked at the beginning would have been the best of all. For some of us, it's hard to follow directions without mixing our own agenda into things, and it's no less so with Yiddishkeit. Of course, we're supposed to use our minds, we're supposed to learn, we're supposed to understand, we're supposed to engage with the mitzvahs in any way we can. And still, when it says, put up a mezuzah on your door, it actually means put up a mezuzah on your doorpost. When it says you should eat matzah on the Seder night, it means we should learn a lot, we should think a lot about it, we should understand a lot of different things, but the bottom line is we should eat matzah on the Seder night. The highest level of connecting with God through God's commandment is, I would argue, doing it on God's terms. Doing it on my terms is a wonderful thing, but doing exactly what God asks, the way Hashem offers us that connection, that has some advantages over everything else. So first, let's take a little look more deeply into these parshas and see what insight they offer us on this very special, extraordinary Shabbos. In the word Vayakhel, you'll find part of our name, Kehila, as in Kehilat Sharei Torah. A Kehila is a community, a congregation, a collective. So the first verse, the very first verse of the parsha, Vayakhel Moshe es kol adas bnei Yisrael, tells us that Moshe gathered together. He assembled the children of Israel. And he told them then, subsequently, the rest of the content of the parsha. Vayakhel means make a kahal, make a kehillah, gather everybody together in one community. That's the first parsha. In the second name of the second parsha, Pekudei, this second parsha this week, we have the meaning of counting, poked, or in Israeli Hebrew, a mifaked is your army commander. You're the officer or the sergeant in charge of you, the one who counts and keeps track of and is responsible for each individual soldier. The parsha starts, Elef Kudei HaMishkan, means that these are the individual reckonings, the counting of each individual donation that went into the building of the Mishkan. Vayakhel is the community, and Pekudei, the individual component parts. We always ask ourselves the question, what's more important? The individual on one hand, the community on the other hand. Of course, in our modern culture, what's more important than the person? Each person's wants and desires and needs, no matter how often those change. Nevertheless, in Jewish life, we're always asking people, could you join the minyan? Could you learn a Mishnah? Could you donate to the golf day, sponsor a hole at the golf tournament, or buy a ticket to the yeshiva dinner? Whatever else it is. We're asking people to be part of the larger community. This week's double parsha actually sums it up nicely. Vayakhel Pekudei. The kehillah is important, and the individual is also important. Now let's zero in our focus even one step more. When you look at the content, when you read through these two parshas, you'll notice that Vayakhel, the one about community, actually contains the details of each individual component, the curtain hooks, the rings, the linking clips, the sockets, each individual piece that fits together to make up the whole project. So when we look closely at Vayakhel, the collective, what do we see? Individuals. Maybe no surprise, now go the other way. Pekudei, the parsha about individuality, what do we find? 1,775 shekels, 603,550 half shekels as a census. That's how we know how many of us there were. 70 talents, 2,400 shekels of copper, and so on and so on. Aggregate amounts, grand totals, bottom line contributions. What's the parsha of individuals all about? Collective total amounts, community amounts. So here's a new insight into the community versus the individual question. Not only is it not one versus the other, not only do they actually work together, each one actually is the other one. A community, in the fullest sense, is in fact bringing together individuals. And individuals, where do they find fullest meaning in life, fullest expression of their individuality? As part of a kehillah, part of a community, part of something larger than themselves. So it's not even a tension. One is part and parcel of the other, and the other is part of the one. So, now, how does that help us in this extraordinarily challenging and trying time? When things get tough, when there have been difficult times in the past, wars, God forbid, missing children, God forbid, hostages, God forbid, we would come together as a kehillah in our shul. We would add a special prayer or an extra chapter or two of Tehillim, Psalms. We would form a collective, and we would know that our prayers were that much stronger when we prayed with one voice together. When in our community there were losses, or even better, simchas, happy things, weddings, births, we would join together and celebrate, give each other brachas for continued good things. So now what do? We have a situation where we're really not allowed to come together, even to form a small daily minyan. We have to wish our mourners long life via phone or mail, email. We're missing that basic person-to-person contact. That's what makes a kehillah what it is, a community. And we're supposed to substitute by virtual digital communication, like this web-based presentation. But we all know it's not the same as the real thing. Every challenge that we run into in life is something that has the potential to bring us higher, to recognize that we have strengths and abilities and capacities that we didn't even know that we had until we had to draw on them in time of need. That's what this is. We read in Psalm 60, "You have given to your faithful a banner to raise them up," King David says. Nasata li'reyecha nes lehisnoises, the verse says. The word banner is nes, and nes is the same word as test. We find it in Akedas Yitzchak, in our Siddur, in every morning's prayers, the binding of Isaac. Any test, and that word is an imperfect translation, but any test that we run into, it's not a pass-fail thing, are we going to fail it or pass it? It's really a challenge, it's an opportunity to lift ourselves up to a new level. And that's what this is. We're in a tough situation where we can't get together to read the Torah and daven together, to live our Eitz Chaim, our tree of life. So what do? We'll study on our own. We'll try to daven together, even though distance separates us, we'll call each other more frequently, we'll email each other, we'll organize ourselves and make sure no one runs out of groceries or their meds or whatever it is that people might need help with. We'll dig down deep in ourselves and into our community, and we'll discover resources and strengths that we didn't even know we had. That's what we'll do. And we won't get used to this situation. We won't think for a minute that this is as good as it's going to get. We're going to daven for everybody's good health and a speedy end to this crisis, and we'll look forward to a time very soon when we're all back together. Earlier this week, on the morning of our last scheduled minyan, I related a story from Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. He told the parable of a king whose kingdom suffered from a blight on the grain, some kind of a grain disease that made everyone who ate it go crazy. The king's trusted advisor said, "Don't worry, Your Highness, I've got you covered. I managed to put aside enough healthy grain for your family and for my family. So we'll just eat from our own storehouses for this year, and we're not going to be affected. And with next year's crop already, we'll be fine." The king said, No, my dear advisor, that's not the way it works. He said, you and I are going to eat the same grain that everybody else eats, and we're going to lose it just like everybody else. But before we do it, we're going to put a mark on our forehead. You're going to put one on your forehead. I'm going to put a mark on my forehead. And when we're going to eat, we're going to go crazy like everybody else. But when you and I see each other, we'll remember that we're crazy. And this is only temporary, and this too shall pass. So that's what we have to do. We have to go crazy like the rest of the world. No minyan, no davening together, no kiddush club, no handshaking, no going out, hoarding pasta and paper towels. But let's remember that this is all craziness, and that soon enough it'll pass, and we'll get back to what's most important, which is being part of something larger than just ourselves and our own strategic spaghetti stockpile. This is Shabbat HaChodesh. Shabbos HaChodesh. We're supposed to take out a second Sefer Torah and read an extra portion about how Nisan is the time of our freedom, the time of our redemption, the time of our deliverance, the time of our freedom. May it be even sooner than we anticipate. We're supposed to be blessing the new month this Shabbos. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Thursday. So remember to daven Musaf for Rosh Chodesh on Thursday and add Hallel into your prayers. And from Thursday on, we leave out Tachanun in our daily prayers for the entire month. The reappearance of the moon in Jerusalem, the eternal capital of Israel, will take place Tuesday morning at 10:14 and 11 Chalakim. De Moiled wird sein Dienstag in der Früh, 14 Minuten und 11 Chalakim noch 10 Nazeger. And last but not least, this is also Shabbat Chazak. We're finishing reading the book of Exodus, Sefer Shemos, so we're not going to be together to stand up and say it, but when you finish reviewing it, say out loud what we're saying to each other across the street and across the neighborhood and across the city and around the world. Chazak, chazak, v'nischazek. Strengthen each other. May we all be strengthened. Have a wonderful, restful, peaceful Shabbos. Stay safe and healthy, and stay in touch.